I'll ask us to all be up and standing so that we start the program. We'd like to stand for the national anthem. Then soon after, getting to the introductions of this amazing event, of course the launch of this amazing report. And the ghetto anthem. Okay, we don't have a ghetto anthem, we'll find one. Have your seats, tafadhali. Oh, we have one. What's the ghetto anthem? There's someone from this side who sings, the gentleman. You see? Or another time we'll be able to do it. Thank you so much. So without much ado, I'd like to welcome the Executive Director of Youth Alive Kenya, who will in turn welcome the Board Vice Chair, Freddie Muli. So let's clap for him up until he gets on the podium. Well, before he speaks, can we all say 66? But widely, 66. Now do it, turn to your neighbor and say 66. Just turn to your neighbor and say 66. You realize you're smiling, right? You guys look scary from this side. If you can maintain the 66, I think you're going to do amazing. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Brad. Waziri, it's an honor and pleasure to have you here with us this morning. Thank you so much. All distinguished guests, our participants, asanteni sana for honoring our invitation. As you can tell, I'm having it's called Nairobi flu, or just a bad course. So I'll ask Freddie to come and make a few remarks on my behalf. Otherwise, I'll be coughing and sneezing up here. But asante sana. Karibu.
Good morning, everyone. To the Captain Secretary, Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports and Arts, the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports and Arts, Principal Secretary, Ministry of Fisheries and Blue Economy, Principal Secretary, Ministry of Labour, representatives from the diplomatic corps present, members of the civil society, our partners including representatives from the youth serving organizations and members of the Fourth Estate. It is an honor and a privilege to stand before you today on behalf of Youth Alive Kenya, an organization driven by a powerful vision and a compelling mission. Our vision is simple yet profound, a society where young people are empowered to realize their full potential. Our mission is to promote the well-being and inclusion of young people in development through partnerships, capacity building, and advocacy. I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for gracing this launch and for your unwavering support in our mission to transform the lives of young people in our nation. This has been made possible by the long-standing support and commitment of the Norwegian Agency for Exchange Cooperation, or NOREC, alongside our regional partners, specifically the Youth Empowerment and Transformation Trust, YET Zimbabwe, and the Center for Youth Empowerment and Civic Education, CYECE Malawi. It is through this collaboration that we are carrying out a project dubbed Youth Participate, whose initiative is to strengthen the capacity of organizations to promote meaningful youth inclusion and engagement in civic and development processes across Kenya, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. This initiative is driven by a clear objective to ensure that youth have a seat at the table and actively contribute to shaping the future of their communities and nations. We firmly believe that youth participation is not just a matter of inclusion, but a vital component for creating sustainable and equitable societies. We understand the power of national and regional learning and knowledge sharing. By bringing together youth and youth organizations, provide them with a platform to learn and share good practices and experiences, give them the right opportunities and skill sets, then we can start to unlock the potential that this demographic dividend offers our country and our continent. Youth Alive Kenya conducted a comprehensive youth situational analysis research in Kenya to understand the current status and challenges faced by young people in socio-economic and political participation. The resulting report offers valuable insights to inform. I am honored today to share with you this report that seeks to interrogate the status of youth unemployment, underemployment, as well as look into the situation of youth participation and engagement in democratic processes. Kenya is a country of the youth. 75% of the 47.6 million population is under the age of 35. On average, so out of this population, the youth population between 18 and 34 years constitutes 13.7 million, which is 29% of this population. On average, 500,000 to 800,000 young Kenyans enter the job market every year. This report gives recommendations on the roles and responsibilities for all stakeholders in youth matters from a policy, legal, financial, programmatic, and institutional perspective. It is important to note that effective youth empowerment requires collaboration between government, civil society organizations, public sector, and young people themselves. We are committed to conduct periodic youth situational analysis research in Kenya, which is essential for gaining a comprehensive understanding of the evolving needs, challenges, and opportunities facing young people. Regular research initiatives provide valuable insights that inform evidence-based policy making, program development, and resource allocation. This report goes a long way in 1. Identification of emerging issues and challenges that might have previously gone unnoticed. 2. Evidence-based decision-making that helps policymakers and program implementers make informed choices, design effective interventions, and allocate resources where they are needed the most. 3. Monitoring and evaluation of existing policies and programs targeting youth empowerment. And lastly, stakeholder engagement that involves engaging with young people, youth organizations, civil society, and other stakeholders to ensure that the voices and perspectives of young people are considered, fostering a sense of ownership and inclusivity in the decision-making process. I want to thank our partner NOREC, represented here by Ellen from the Norwegian Embassy, for their overwhelming support over the years and commitment to ensure young people are included at all levels of development. I also cannot fail to thank the entire team and family at Youth Alive Kenya, which includes the board, the secretariat, and our county-based youth networks, who made the entire exercise possible and our work so rewarding. I conclude with the words of Kailash Satyarthi. The power of youth is the commonwealth for the entire world. The faces of young people are the faces of our past, our present, and our future. No segment in society can match with the power, idealism, enthusiasm, and courage of young people. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Another round of applause. Let's make it louder. Okay, so I will in turn would like to just introduce the youth serving organizations representative. I'm just about to receive a name, but also we have our amazing representative from the Norwegian Embassy. Her name is Ellen Vrolstad, but because we're in Kenya, we'll call her Vralstad. But I talked to her, I don't like mispronouncing names, so her name is Vrolstad. She actually represents the Norwegian Embassy. Makofi kwake as she gets up up until she gets here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Cabinet Secretary, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It's an honor for me to be here representing the Norwegian Embassy As the excellent Master of Ceremonies said, my name is Ellen Rolstad. Now, first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to the launch of this report. Please allow me also to pass on the greetings from my ambassador, who would have very much liked to be here, but unfortunately he is held up by other responsibilities this morning. So this report, it builds on the work that is related to Youth Alive Kenya's exchange project, which is supported by NOREC, the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation. Exchange cooperation, actually. NOREC's exchange model, it is a unique tool in Norwegian development cooperation, but it is also unique globally, we think, because it breaks down the traditional barriers between North and South, and it shows that we all have something to contribute, and that we all have something to learn. And on that note, we are very honored that NOREC has decided to support this project, because one group that truly has a lot to contribute and that we all have a lot to learn from is the youth. The young population plays an incredibly important role in securing democracy and the sustainability of our common future. And promoting and facilitating meaningful and equitable youth participation in political and democratic processes is thus absolutely crucial. And I would therefore like to extend my sincere gratitude to Youth Alive Kenya for the great work that you are doing in this regard. So I'd like to thank you again for inviting me here today to the launch of this incredibly important report. I'm sure we will have a lot to learn from it, and I look very much forward to reading it when we get that far. So thank you again, and congratulations on your launch. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Makofi kwake tena. Okay, clap for her like we've been paid to clap. That's the atmosphere allowed. You know, the British High Commissioner to Kenya, the outgoing British High Commissioner to Kenya, when she was asked if she's going to stay around, she said, because courtesy of Kenyan men, she might decide to stay around. So Rolstad, courtesy of Kenyan men. So the Kenyan men on the other side, tafadhali, hii imeenda, so we'd like her to stay around as soon as she finishes her duty, courtesy of Norway to Kenya. So asante sana. Without much ado, I'd like to welcome the lady of the moment, Mbuki Mburu, who is going to give us the report presentation. Tupige makofi kwa Afrika. Nice. Karibu sana.
Good morning, everybody. Can I feel the energy in the room? Good morning. Nisalimie kwa hewa tafadhali. Good to see you. Our chief guest, Honorable CS Ababu Namwamba. Karibu sana. It is very good to see you. Thank you for honoring my invitation. Secretary of Youth, Bonarem, very good to see you. I know we always nag you all the time as young people, but you're always there as a father to keep strong with us. The chair of the Youth Advisory Board for National Youth Council, thank you so much for coming. And the CEO of National Youth Council, and the representative from the Norwegian Embassy, and the chair of the Youth Alive Kenya. Thank you so much, and all distinguished guests. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a great honor to be here to present the Youth Situational Analysis in the aspect of youth employment and civic participation. And when you're talking about youth employment and why we did actually youth employment and civic participation, because there's a close relation of youth engagement in terms of even getting employed or even accessing some of those opportunities. And so we thought it's important to look at youth employment and how are young people engaged in democratic processes, in governance processes, in political processes as well. And so that's why we did this research. And of course, it was an honor to do it on behalf of Youth Alive Kenya. My name is Mbuki Mburu. I'm a public policy and youth development advocate. And we'll start off, my presentation. And if you ask a young person today, what's your biggest challenge? And youth employment will come up as the first thing. But also, low civic engagement remains a beckoning challenge for young people in Kenya. And as I was doing the research, one of the things that came across to me when engaging the different stakeholders, one of the things that came up is that young people are not interested in governance processes. If you look at, for example, the political science students who are supposed to be very engaged on current affairs, they actually are disengaged. And that was a concern from an academic person, saying these young people actually are focused on how do we earn money. Young people are earning money from TikTok. We have a few millionaires, who are doing digital engagement. How can they get money like that? And so you find that, the engagement in civic processes is a big challenge. But going on in terms of youth employment, there's also the incapacity of our economy to absorb employment demand. And employment growth is very minimal to accommodate the staggered market entry. And here, I'll point out to a development blueprint, which is the Vision 2030. And the Vision 2030, of course, was established during Kibaki's administration. And the first term of its implementation, which is 2008 to 2012, Kenya actually just achieved 6%. And if you look at the 6%, which they had targeted to, 6% annual growth rate, which was translating to 3.7 million new jobs. But the government, said 3.7 for the 5 years, but the government only achieved 740,000, jobs at that time. And that means they only achieved 80%. And so we have a backlog of achieving employment in Kenya. Of course, we had the second medium-term plan, which was Jubilee's administration. That was 2013 to 2017. And then we have the third medium-term plan, 2018 to 2022. Unfortunately, we do not have specific data on what government achieved during that time. But of course, the government promised to create 1 million jobs every year, which was quite ambitious. But then, that statistics we do not have yet. But really, even as we transition now to the fourth medium-term plan, I'm excited that the CS is quite committed. In fact, when he got, in government, the first thing he did was to establish the creative technical committee, and we really appreciate CS for doing that. I think that was quite embracing the creative economy, because the next frontier of employment, and we really applaud you for that. But also the sports ministry, we also established the technical committee as well. And I think we are moving into a good trajectory, and it's just, that commitment that we need to continue pulling up. But also, what is required for us to be able to have a proper or to match up the employment? We have, as I said, the projected at that time in the first medium term was 6%, but right now we have a target of at least 10%. And it's a challenge for us as stakeholders to be able to, if we are able to achieve, 511,000 employment in the first medium-term plan, what do we do so that we can be able to achieve the 10%? Remember, that was 6%. And in the speech that was given by the executive director, he talked about we need at least 900,000 jobs, and that is what is translating to 10%. But also, we need to live within the realities that we are also, as a country, very, we are politicians, all of us. We analyze, we politic for very long periods, and that's why you find even the implementation of Vision 2030 is quite narrowed. And this is something that as stakeholders in the youth space, in employment spaces, and all actors, we need to think about how do we collaborate more so that we reduce the political period and we go on into ensuring that we are serving the young people of this country. But also, I want to, before I go into the research, I want to present to you the research methodology. We majorly looked at the qualitative approach. However, there was a systemic integration of both quantitative and qualitative methods in collecting data for both secondary and primary. We're also able to administer 1,216 randomly sampled youth using the Google Forms, and this was in 31 representative counties. And as I say, those representative counties were quite diverse actually. And so, looking at the different regions and the semi-arid and arid, all those counties were captured. Also, we're able to have, 6 purposefully sampled youth leaders and 37 key informant interviews from private sector, political parties, youth practitioners, government, education institutions, because we're talking about education and training and how do they transition to the job market. And of course, those are the statistics in terms of how young people are involved. We have 45.5% who are female, and then of course male were majority with 53.1%, but also in the spirit of inclusivity, we had key population as well represented. The majority of people who participated in the survey were actually young people between 25 years and 30 years. I'll go into findings, but before I go into that, I want to recognize the efforts that have been made by government and also stakeholders. If you look at government, for example, it has done affirmative action funds. We have, of course, the recent one that we have, the Hustler Fund. We have the Women Enterprise Fund. We have the Youth, the GAF. We have the GAF, and also we have the Uwezo Fund. So in terms of affirmative action, the government has actually taken some of those actions to, ensure that young people have access to capital. In terms of entrepreneurship programs, we have the Youth Empowerment, Kenya Youth Empowerment and Opportunities Program, the KYOP, which has been actually most young people recommended that KYOP, because what was outstanding about KYOP program, it was a grant, and actually the grant, it was about the minimum was 900,000 and 3.5 million. And young people were able to demonstrate how they started the business and were able to employ other young people. So I think, in the research, the KYOP program actually stood out in terms of the impact as well. And of course, we have the Kenya Youth Employment and Entrepreneurship Accelerator Program that also is an action of the government in terms of employment. Of course, we have the internship program in terms of employment that government has actually put in place. But of course, we have skills development, we have National Youth Service that has as well contributed to the skills development. We have TVET institution that government has come out strongly to be able to support young people on skills development. In terms of education and training, the government definitely has been able to, Thank you so much, and sorry for that interruption. So I want to go into the findings in terms of impact. I talked about the disbursement of funds. We have the KYOP and the Hustler Fund. Another impact that government has done, facilitating youth enterprises to develop linkages with large enterprises, and of course, the Youth Fund has been very strong in facilitating youth enterprises in that aspect. And also providing trade premises and work sites. The government has also provided business development services to youth-owned enterprises, but also has facilitated young people to obtain jobs abroad. What has other stakeholders done? And when I'm talking about stakeholders, we're talking about civil society, we're talking about development partners, multilateral organizations, and for this group of people, there's increased youth representation, thus youth priorities in terms of decision making. And of course, we are talking about decision making. It's the core of everything. in terms of creating employment and also civic engagement as well. Another impact that the stakeholders have done or have achieved is enhanced skills partnership through skills standardization, and of course we've seen International Labour Organization very strong to push governments to be able to ratify the standards of skills and also ensure that we have decent work as much as we are pushing for employment. Policy development and implementation, yes, this I can confirm, and I know Bonare were very engaged in the Kenya Youth Development Policy, and different stakeholders of course engaged in the development of the Kenya Youth Development Policy, so there's an impact on that end. But also guide on access to employment opportunities, standards and recommendation on areas of creation of employment and opportunities. This is where we need to, pull our socks. One of the challenges that we had in terms of government was narrow implementation framework. And this one actually came out very strongly, and especially on Kazi kwa Vijana. Young people felt like it's a program, yes, it will put money into the pockets, but for only a short period. And it's sort of thought like it's, it's a very quick fixing, but really it's not addressing the root causes. So the narrow implementation framework is something that actually stood out. Inflexible to youth needs in the different contexts. And this one particularly was, for example, if we are very targeted on, let's say, digital economy, but then there is no involvement of young people, maybe in agriculture. And so you'll find that if, for example, the government is so much focused in digitization, there's a tendency to leave out other sectors as well. So there was inflexibility of youth needs. Also, lengthy procedure of loan application and processing of inadequate funds, and this was mainly for the youth affirmative action funds, that is youth funds, weather funds, women funds. Some of those funds, the process of applying some of those loans is quite tedious for these young people. But also, government programs actually have impact, but the only challenge is the politicization of some of those youth programs. And a case example would be, let's say, the KO program. The young people who actually benefited from the KO program. But then you'll find that there's a lot of, other leaders who are just politicizing to sort of discredit the government of the day. But really, that politicization then sort of hinders young people to participate in some of those programs. Other challenge or shortfall is a mismatch between the level and the type of skills imparted and what the labor market demands. And this also speaks to what are education stakeholders doing. Are we collaborating with the market, the stakeholders, the private sector? So you will find that there's a mismatch. Someone will go for the 4-year program, degree program, but when they get to the market, that is not the skill that is needed. So the mismatch of the type of skills as well. There's no integration of entrepreneurship into the TVET curriculum with skills such as preparation of financial management. And actually, if you look at for the last, especially for the last medium-term plan, you will find that the government actually really invested in TVETs, and I think even now. But then the TVETs are still seen like a less qualification in the job market. Because if you look at, for example, the job adverts, they say a bachelor's degree, from a recognized university. But that young person has actually gone through a TVET and is actually not recognized. So you will find that there is no integration. But also, even as you go to the skills of TVET, right? It's only that skill that you're taught, but then how do you expand to be able to ensure that that skill that you're getting, if it's mechanic, if you're going to start your own mechanic business, are you also supported to get other skills to be able to thrive in the market? Stakeholders, the shortfalls for stakeholders, little utilization of data to identify the existing loopholes. We are all doing interventions, but but we are really not relying on data. That came out very strongly. Also, there's a lot of checklists. Youth engagement during policy development processes, or rather development of policies, is not sufficient. And you find that even young people, you're just mobilized. Kuna meeting fulani ya Youth Alive, kujeni, but then there's no deliberate engagement of young people in the process of development of these policies. And this is a challenge, and I'm not saying that is what Youth Alive does, I'm just giving an example, because Youth Alive is our host today. Intervention by stakeholders are reactionary, and it does not address the root cause of unemployment. And this actually is a big challenge. You'll find that, in fact, there was a research that was done, and it shows that there's a lot of resources in the youth space, but the impact is very minimal. And you find that it's really, the interventions are very reactionary, that we are all trying to address the same problem, but we are not talking to each other. We are not, trying to figure out what exactly is the problem, so that we address the problem systematically. So it's more reactionary, and so we don't have so much impact. We have a lot of, interest, or rather a lot of emphasis for young people to venture into entrepreneurship, but also we are not addressing the cost of doing business. We are encouraging young people, business, it's the best way to go, there's a sustainability, but also we are not addressing the business environment. And of course, that also speaks to what the young people thought. Young people actually thought it's better to go into entrepreneurship. As you can see the graph here, 76% of young people thought entrepreneurship is the way to go. And why do they think entrepreneurship is the most, or is the best way to go? It's highly dependable. They thought, you can depend on entrepreneurship more than employment. Employment, the employer can come up one day and say, we need to cut down on the number of staff that we have. Of course, young people, they want a bit of freedom. There's long-term job security. And of course, with the rate of unemployment, they thought that, we want to create solutions. Actually, young people from the ground want to create solutions, and that's why they want to get into entrepreneurship. But there are realistic challenges on entrepreneurship. Capital investment is a big challenge, and of course, we've seen that accessing capital is still a challenge in Kenya, and not just in Kenya, in Africa actually. Access to capital is still a challenge. But of course, corruption is a factor, but also it also requires a lot of skills. The young people who thought employment is still viable, but why did they think employment is viable? There's stable income, sort of financial security. You get diverse skills, in employment. You're exposed to different environments, different skills. So they thought it's better to be in employment. It's less complex and it's less risky. But also, the reality of employment, again, there are no employment opportunities. They also do not focus on personal growth. Of course, that will talk about the labor laws and labor requirements, and of course, poor career growth management. Going into the youth perspectives, and we have seen all the government interventions, but young people still feel we are not involved in engineering and implementation of interventions. Here, I want to, particularly one of the things that came up is hustler funds. Actually, the young people feel like we still don't understand, where are we going with this? So the young people are not involved in engineering. Okay, thank you so much. There's no regulation of the informal sector. And this actually goes into the biggest challenge that we have in Saudi Arabia. There's no regulation of the employment sector. And then, of course, youth unemployment intervention are neither sustainable or dignified. And of course, this came up with issues around kazi kwa vijana. You find that young people have skills, but then wanaenda kufagia. So we feel that, we need to have, better interventions and well thought out. There's no deliberate institutionalization of meaningful mechanism to fight youth unemployment, but of course, the biggest challenge I would like to highlight here is the limited integration of government services. And I want to give an example. I don't know why KYOP is on top of my mind, but allow me to use KYOP again. KYOP, I know during the research, I interviewed one of the beneficiaries of KYOP, and one of the things he was actually doing spices. He won a grant of KYOP 3.6 million. Amazing, Of course, he started off the business, went to grow the different spices, and of course, in the course of implementation, they realized I need a lot of equipment for me to be able to process some of these, spices to actually things that you can sell in supermarkets. But he was spending so much money to actually outsource the industrial equipment. In the process of looking around, he was told, we actually have KIRDI, Kenya Institute of Industrial Development. And why I'm bringing you that story is because, remember, KYOP is a government program. But the implementers of KYOP did not support this young person to be able to link themselves to KIRDI. Because KIRDI is actually a government, a government institution. So had they linked this young person to KIRDI, then he would not have spent so much money on processing some of those. So I think it's really the integration of government services. But of course, the very last one is the coordination of the Ministry of Labor in terms of employment. I know I'm running out of time, but I'll go to the second aspect of youth civic participation. And here we talked about youth participation in elections. And you can see, of course, with the data from IEBC, there's a lot of youth apathy. In terms of, we actually had 77% of youth apathy in the country. And so this is something that, it's a worry in the sector that young people are not engaging in politics, but also even just accessing some of those identity cards, it's still a big challenge. But also, in terms of youth participation in devolution, amazing. The Constitution of Kenya gave us that privilege of having devolved functions, or rather devolved government for us to engage. But the reality that young people are facing is that the issue of hierarchy in our communities. You'll find that young people want to come out, participate in public participation forums. They want to participate in the different decision making, in the CIDPs, in all these engagements. But then the older generation of youth are still prioritized. So you'll find that those are some of the challenges that we have, even with devolution. As much as the government has come, down to us, there's still glaring issues in terms of participation of young people. In terms of policy making, I think this was we didn't quite get a challenge on that. Young people, most young people thought that they're actually engaged in policy making, and of course, the most common one or the most recent one is the Kenya Youth Development Policy that most young people recognize that they were involved in that process. Youth in political parties, or rather in party politics, there are glaring issues around institutionalization of political parties, and of course that with the lack of institutionalization of party politics or political parties, that encourages political entrepreneurs, and of course political entrepreneurs thrive on ethnicity. Challenges, I know I'm out of time, but in terms of governance and leadership, we have gatekeepers. Gatekeepers, want to maintain the status quo, and sometimes even the leaders of those institutions are not able to engage. Lack of understanding of the stakeholders on the importance of youth engagement. I think this has actually come out, and especially in the counties, this one, they don't appreciate the youth participation. Lack of political goodwill. Are we seeing the different stakeholders really ensuring, and especially government, ensuring that young people are involved. As I said earlier, the current generation of students are still socially, are socialized differently. They are civically disengaged, disinterested in current affairs, and disconnected from the national issues. Another issue is the systemic attitude towards civic participation. And when I want to say, allow me to focus on the systemic attitude. And actually, when you look at this, it's there's a law that passed, Honorable CS, the University Amendment Act of 2008, that actually stopped the student politics, the student leadership politics. And that one has really affected the attitude of young people because young people are not engaged in electing their own leaders in universities. And so they realize, there's the delegate system, sort of the administration, a lot of controls who will be the leader in the institutions. And so the same way the system is controlling that leadership, when they transition to the outside world, they're like, okay, we even survived in university that way. So what is different in this other, other life? So I think that is something we would like addressed as young people to ensure that that participation of young people is very vibrant as well. I'm out of time. Okay. Recommendation. Allow me to go to recommendation. In terms of policy, we are recommending that the review of the National Occupation Standards of 2000. How many years later? 23 years later. And that's why we have a problem with our own young people going to Saudi Arabia. Because the government cannot actually engage on occupational standards of 2000 and we are 2 centuries later. So that is something that needs to be looked at. In terms of policy, again, implementation of the National Employment Act, and of course, in relation as well to the National Employment Authority, a big issue as well for young people. Improving the Kenya Market Information System. I talked about the mismatch between education and training and the market. So that is also implementation of the Kenya Youth Development Policy. I know the State Department of Youth Affairs did an amazing policy, of course together with the National Youth Council, but we are still yet to see the implementation. So we look forward to the implementation of that policy. Of course, the review of the National Employment Policy as well. Legal, we have quite a number, review the laws and policies to enhance business environment. Friendly taxation regimes. I know you are all resonating with me when I talk about taxation regime and the Finance Bill 2023. Of course, utilizing the ESG frameworks. I will not go into programmatic financial institution because of time, but I will go into recommendation for civic participation. Public participation is a key aspect for young people. And young people are looking at, us developing very elaborate public participation policies to be able to ensure that even as we devolve government, also public participation is very well devolved as well. I will not look at all of them, but really is to say that civic participation, we need to look at ensuring that young people are engaged, and especially when you talk about the Universities Amendment Act. I don't want to mention the person who was behind it, but really that's a big challenge for young people. I beg to end there, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much. I'd like to go on to the next one. I'd like to welcome Michael from Youth Serving Organizations, who's the representative. Another round of applause for him, and of course for Mbuki for doing such a great job. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it short and sweet. So I'll be on the clock, and after just about 2.5 minutes, I'll start walking towards the podium to indicate that we're really running out of time. But karibu sana, Mr. Michael.
Thank you very much. Bwana CS, the representative from the Norwegian Embassy, and civil society organization represented today, the National Youth Council, and everyone else, good morning. I am honored to stand here on behalf of the youth serving organizations to be part of this launch of the Youth Situation Report. And let me say the YSO, of which Youth Alive Kenya is a very, very active member, is a consortium of youth-led and youth-focused organizations that have decided to come together to unite and advocate for youth issues at the national level. Our motto actually is youth together under one voice. And the reason why the YSO came together was for a very long time. And even the report that Mbuki has just shared are saying that a lot of youth policies, intervention are reactionary. And the reason why they are reactionary is because we are doing our own small things in our own small cocoons. And even though you're doing it, because you're doing it alone, the impact is not felt that much. So as young youth-serving organizations, we decided, instead of working in our own small cocoons, why don't we come together when there's an issue that faces young people at the national level, why don't we come together and advocate for that particular issue? And that's how the YSO was born. And I'm very glad that even in this room I can see a lot of our representatives. And on to what is the launch of today's report. I want to laud Youth Alive Kenya for launching the Youth Situation Report, because one of the things that we noticed as the YSO is the lack of evidence or lack of data to enable us advocate and push for youth interest within at the national level and at the county level. And the report that Mbuki has just shared has given us a lot of information and data that we can use as the consortium and even in our own individual organizations to be able to put forth very evidence-based programming or pick up advocacy issues that have backing, that have data behind them. So I know the MC has given us a very little time, but I want to say that I want to thank Youth Alive Kenya for this report, because it gives us a foundation, a basis for doing the work that we came together to do, and that is to advocate for youth issues on the social front, the political front, and the economic front. And I want to say that as we launch the report, there are recommendations. There are recommendations for government, there are recommendations for civil society organizations, and there are recommendations for community-based organizations and the youth at large. And I want to say on behalf of the YSO, the ones that touch on the youth fraternity will be picking them up. And Mr. Waziri, we will be knocking on your doors very soon, because we believe that two issues that has been mentioned in the report, the employment and civic participation of young people, is very, very important. And as an important stakeholder within the youth sector, we take our work seriously, and soon, and very soon, we shall be knocking on your doors so that together, because we believe in partnership as well. We believe that when the youth-serving organizations and government and even our donor partners work together, then we can be able to realize a society where the youth are economically, socially, and politically empowered. Because without the youth, there's no future for this country. And if we love this country, then we must ensure that the youth issues are heard, the youth issues are implemented. So I don't want to take a lot of time, so with those very few remarks, I want to say thank you once again for this invite, and we look forward to the next steps that we'll take following the launch of this report. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Michael. And actually, Michael did have to stick to the plan. Thank you for inspiring the next speaker on Matters Time. We're going to move on to the next one. And I don't know how to make a CEO speak faster, because they might be having a lot to say. National Youth Council Chairperson, Margaret Kiogora. That is National Youth Council CEO, Margaret Kiogora. I'd like to welcome you on stage. So begin my coffee talk about that.
Our CS, Honorable Ababu Namwamba, Secretary Youth, Mr. Ray, our Youth Advisory Board Chair, Madam Sophie, Norwegian Representative, Executive Director, Youth Alive, all present partners, good morning. As it has been mentioned, my name is Margaret Kiogora, and I'm privileged to be the acting CEO of National Youth Council. First and foremost, allow me to take this opportunity to say it's such a great honor to be part of this launch. I am also honored to recognize the presence, as I have mentioned, of our Cabinet Secretary, who is also my boss and who looks at what we are doing. Karibu sana Bwana CS. And thank you for gracing this occasion. And actually that shows you how the government is serious. You can see the CS of youth is here so that we can be able to analyze and get the report on the youth analysis today. I would also like to take this opportunity to applaud Youth Alive. Youth Alive Kenya, as well as the partners that they've worked with, for convening this important breakfast meeting to launch the report on youth situation analysis in Kenya. I want to also further take this opportunity to recognize the importance of this report. If you look at what's being presented over here, it's showing you where we are and where we want to be. This report actually helps us to take stock of where we are as a country in the implementation of Article 55 of our Constitution on youth participation. As a government institution, we will also use this report as a guide on how to improve our youth participation and inclusion for both national and county level. Let me take this opportunity to further state that the government has put in place so many initiatives that have been mentioned here to enhance youth participation and employability. And one of them, which I believe the CS will be speaking about and every other person who will come after me, is on Talantahela, which is over here. If you can see, it's well displayed. For us, when it comes to youth employability, we need to be able to give them that opportunity. And that's where Talantahela initiative is, where youth will get an opportunity to earn a living through their talent. The government has also ensured that there is creation of the opportunity and participation for youth through AGBO. I did not see that, access to government procurement opportunity, which the law specified that 30% of government procurement should go to young people and the youth, and also women and people with disability. And this strives to show that how much the government is putting in place to ensure that the youth are well represented and they get opportunities to actually get employment and create employment for others. At this juncture, I want to call upon all stakeholders who are here, who are normally, they influence policies, to ensure that whatever that we've been able to pick here as the areas of the gap, are we able to go back and say, are we involving our youth in development of these policies? Because that's one of the things that came out. Either youth feel there's that gap, we are not represented, we are not participating in the development of these policies. Just ensuring that we take stock of how we are coming up with these policies. Are the youth feeling part and parcel of it? Allow me to conclude by stating that National Youth Council promotes youth participation through the ongoing county youth policy development, which is in accordance with the Strategic Development Goal number 8, the Kenya Vision 2030, and also the Kenya Youth Development Policy of 2019, which was mentioned earlier, as well as the principle of inclusion and participation as exposed by our Constitution, with further lobby for youth inclusion in various government boards. Why we push for that is because in those boards, youth are able to get an opportunity to lobby for the changes in the policies. With those few remarks, allow me to end here. And I want to end by once again thanking Youth Alive Kenya. I want to assure you of our commitment as National Youth Council to work with like-minded partners to ensure that youth participation in both socio-economic and political spheres to ensure that we realize the full potential of our youth. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much for sticking to the plan. That's the acting CEO, National Youth Council. Without much ado, I'd like to go on to the next one. the chairperson, National Youth Council Advisory Board, Sophie Nekoye, in the building. To pick up a coffee as she comes on stage. Yes. She actually looks like my mom. My mom is that beautiful, you know. I mean, look at me. Not a bad product after all. Karim.
Our Cabinet Secretary, the Honorable Ababu Namwamba, and all protocol observed. Good morning. My name is Sophie Nekoye Waliaula, the chairperson, National Youth Advisory Board, that is from the National Youth Council. So, as it has been said, because of time, for us as the board, we are the watchdogs. We listen to what you want, and for us is to act. So I'm not going to say so much, because our Cabinet Secretary is here. He's going to say what is going to be done. And us, we are going to watch and look at what also people are doing. The board is not here to tell you what you're supposed to do. For us, is to watch what you're going to do, to support you, and actually to reassure you of our support. The government is doing its best. And as you have seen, like our CEO has mentioned, look at what is around you. Look around the hall. Kindly please look around. We have our program there, and that is Talanta Hela. So we are doing the best we can. What we encourage you is to continue advocating for the youth programs, and please be intentional. Thank you so much.
I didn't know we were breaking records, the 3 minutes records, but I know my next speaker, who's a good friend of mine, I've known for a good number of years, is here, is going to break the record, really. I'd like to welcome the Secretary, State Department of Youth Affairs, Raymond Ocheng, to stage, and who will in turn welcome the CS to speak to us.
Thank you so much, Brad. Honorable CS, our Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Ababu Namwamba, the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts, Chair, National Youth Council, the CEO, Norwegian representative, Youth Alive, and the youth leaders, the counties here. I see IBC is here, represented by Madam. I see the county represented by the county director for the Nairobi County Government, the youth department, and all the leaders who are present here. Good morning. I'm not going to make any remarks because our remarks is going to be articulated well by our Cabinet Secretary. But Honorable CS, just allow me to appreciate you. We do not take you for granted. I remember when we came here in the morning, we were really grappling with Dennis. And I was telling him, do we tell CS to come or not to come? Because the tables were, and I told him at some point, let me just now tell him to come. Only for our CS had already come to the holding room. So that tells you, honorable young people, the opportunity that we have, the goodwill that we have, and the leadership that we have. Yesterday, the CS was hosting the president, and after you host the president, how would you appear in the morning to listen to a report if you're not only dedicated to that cause? So can you appreciate Waziri for that true dedication to that? And Waziri, we appreciate what Youth Alive is doing, and Waziri has even appreciated your report and even given you what you need to think through next, and I believe he's going to say that. Waziri, as I wrap up, I made a commitment because I know the type of leader you are. When we were in KICC on Friday, and I see some faces who are there, and young people tried to use that opportunity not to be responsible enough, and we put them to their place by saying we need to take advantage of the opportunity, articulate our ideas well, bring what we want to see on the table well, because we have a leadership that is going to listen. And I think I did tell the youth serving organizations who are there that let's organize a town hall that we bring all the youth serving organizations together. Let's organize, and then we have that opportunity that you are also going to articulate to Waziri what you're doing in a consolidated manner, and I believe that spirit is already there. And then also Waziri is also going to articulate to you what government is doing and the plan of government so that we realign together. And Waziri, I did make that promise because I know how you're committed. So without many other words, I want us to be upstanding and to appreciate Waziri as he comes to the stage. Can we appreciate Waziri let's go. Let's proceed. Thank you so much, Waziri.
Let's be seated, please. Let's get seated. Let me acknowledge the team that has accompanied me from our Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Arts and Sports, Raymond, Madam Nekoye, Madam CEO of our Youth Council. I also want to acknowledge the leadership of Youth Alive Kenya, both the chair and the CEO of Youth Alive Kenya, Ellen from the Norwegian Embassy. I acknowledge you and appreciate the support of the Norwegian Agency for Exchange Cooperation, NOREC, that has made it possible for us to gather here this morning. I want to congratulate Youth Alive Kenya for putting together this report, conducting a survey, and putting together a very comprehensive report. In my presence here, the presence of our leadership from the ministry is a statement of how seriously we take the report you have put together and how seriously we take our interaction with stakeholders and actors in the youth space. We don't take the work you do for granted, and we are very keen to make sure that we work together to achieve the common goal we have of making the spaces available for youth better. My office had prepared a rather comprehensive speech here, but after listening to the synopsis of the report, I believe I should just talk to you rather than take you through the rigmarole of reading a written speech. But let me say that just looking at the report, there are a couple of things that come to mind, especially areas that would require government support, areas would require deeper collaboration, deeper partnership between the various partners. And I'm talking about government, civil society, where Youth Alive Kenya is domiciled. I'm talking about the private sector, a key player. We already have programs that we do with KEPSA, for instance, with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and other private sector actors. I'm talking about the international community, embassies, international development partners. We really all must work together in this space of lifting our young people. And the areas that we really need to do better is greater coordination of the youth sector interventions, just making sure that we are all joined. We are all speaking to each other. The right hand knows what the left hand is doing. It is all hands on deck. We break the silos. There's a tendency to live within your little silo, and you want to do everything in your little silo without connecting the dot with the next person. So greater coordination. I note that from your report that we just need to coordinate better. We need to talk to each other more. We need to do much more together in a more coordinated way. The second issue is exploiting the talents of our young people across sports and the creatives. It is a huge unexploited arena that could employ so many of our young people, that could get so many of our young people employed, gainfully engaged. And when you look at some of the jurisdictions we love to refer to. On this African continent, I would refer you to South Africa, I would refer you to Nigeria, I would refer you to a place like Morocco, and you can even see the same thing starting to start in our southern neighbor in Tanzania. What all those jurisdictions have in common is that they have monetized and commercialized sports and the creative industry. So that music, for instance, music is not just for entertainment. Of course, we love music for entertainment, and music is great entertainment. But music has been elevated beyond entertainment and turned into a mega platform for livelihoods. So that music supports a whole ecosystem of livelihoods. Film supports a whole ecosystem of livelihoods. Sports, you love to watch those Nigerian movies. While you're seated in Nairobi enjoying those Nigerian movies, you're actually supporting livelihoods in that jurisdiction. Okay. If you go to some of the biggest economies on the globe, the US, the UK, Germany, India, the creative industry is a mega economic driver. Mega economic driver. You know, during COVID, some people wondered, why did the UK government, working together with the Football Association of England, of the UK, decided to return football in the midst of COVID. And they did so knowing that they wouldn't allow fans to come to the stadium because of the COVID restrictions. Do you know why? After several months of COVID, the UK economy felt that without football, you had plugged something mega out of the UK economy. And especially the TV, the broadcast economic ecosystem around football. And that is why they returned football, even with COVID. And so you'd watch football on TV, but in empty stadia. That tells you what football is to the economy of the UK. It cannot survive a year without football. It tells you of an economy that has commercialized and monetized football to a point where it is a key driver of the economy. Monetization and commercialization of sports and the creative industry is an area that we have to get into. Music, film in India is a key driver of the Indian economy. And the Indian economy is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. It's one of the biggest economies on the face of the earth. You cannot switch off Bollywood as an economic ecosystem in the Indian economy because of the livelihoods Bollywood supports. And so the point I'm making is that I am glad that your report recognizes the area of sports and the creatives as a platform that remains largely unexploited, but which offers incredible opportunities to keep our young people gainfully engaged and creating opportunities for them for livelihoods. And that is the whole point around what we call the Talanta Hela initiative. I'll come back to Talanta Hela in a short while. You have also flagged ICT and social media as an area that we can exploit to expand opportunities that are available to young people. I couldn't agree more. And that is why the administration led by His Excellency President William Ruto is investing heavily in what we are calling the digital superhighway, providing digital hubs, providing spaces that you can plug in to be gainfully employed and to earn livelihoods through social media and through the digital space. This Friday we will be launching the Talanta Hela initiative, and among the things we will be activating is how we can get the revenue flows that so many countries have plugged into on Facebook flowing into our economy, something that Kenya has not been able to activate yet, but we will be activating that at the launch of the Talanta Hela program on Friday. You have also identified the blue economy as a sector that can be exploited. The blue economy is a huge area. The blue economy is not just about fishing. The blue economy is about expanding opportunities in tourism and the many other economic drivers that can be built around our water bodies. So you're talking about the sea, you're talking about the lake, you're talking about our rivers. That is a whole big area. And so from the outset, let me acknowledge that your report has already flagged certain points of focus that the ministry has already taken note of, and we are definitely going to give key attention to. But you have drawn our attention on the issue of the twin issues of youth employability and participation in governance. Because at the end of the day, your report is big on the question of participation, on the question of inclusivity. That is an important issue to us as a government. Because our administration sought to manage the affairs of this country on the platform primarily of inclusivity. Inclusivity in terms of the economy. How do you make every Kenyan feel included? How do you make every Kenyan feel part of the Kenyan economic circuit? How do you make every Kenyan feel part of the governance of this country? So inclusivity is key for us. And the question is, why are our young people feeling disconnected? That is a big question. Kenya is such a vibrant democracy, perhaps the most vibrant democracy on this continent, I dare say. So why are our young people feeling disconnected in this very vibrant democracy? Looking at the demographics, the statistics of the last elections, a large number of young people did not bother to register to vote. And a large portion of those who bothered to register to vote did not turn up to vote. Why? What is the reason for the apathy? Why are our young people becoming increasingly ambivalent to the democratic process and to matters of governance? Why is that happening when young people have access to more information? With the explosion of the digital space and social media? Why is that happening when our leadership profile is largely youthful? Today, when you look at the profile of the Kenyan Parliament, both chambers of Parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate, there is a large number of young people in those spaces. Parliament even has a whole association called the Kenya Young Parliamentarians Association, an association made up of young members of Parliament. Are we saying that these young members of Parliament, who are actually youth, a large number of them are youth, are not speaking the language of youth? So youth are electing their own, because in very many places, when youth participate in the electoral process, you realize a lot of young people are electing fellow youth. in positions of leadership. And it is across the whole ecosystem. You see that in the county assemblies. A lot of our MCS are quite youthful. A lot of our members of parliament and senators are quite youthful. Solve for me this puzzle. How our leadership demographic profile is increasingly youthful, yet young people are increasingly feeling disconnected. It's an oxymoron. Today, you have more young people in leadership than at any other stage in the history of this country. Where is the problem? Once these young people are elected, do they disconnect to the young people outside leadership? And there are more programs today geared towards integrating young people into leadership than at any other stage. So I want you to be able to crack that puzzle. And as you crack that puzzle, I want you to hack back into history and ask yourself, how are you feeling so disenfranchised compared to the first generation of African leaders? Think Nelson Mandela, think Kwame Nkrumah, think Tom Mboya, think Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. The first generation, call them the founding generation of African sovereignty. I want you to reflect back to that generation, and you're going to realize something. All of them, by the way, all of them without exception, got into the liberation struggle as youth in their 20s. All of them without exception. Even our own Jomo Kenyatta, even though he becomes president at an advanced age, but he becomes an activist in his 20s. Look at his profile. All of them get into the liberation struggle as youth. They don't have the programs of youth empowerment, civic education, capacity building, all these big donor-funded programs we love to bandy around. They are people living in a very repressive environment. Some took up arms, like Nelson Mandela and his Umkhonto weSizwe in South Africa. They fight for the liberation of this continent. Some become leaders at a very young age. Tom Mboya became the Minister for Constitutional Affairs and Economic Planning at the age of 28. You know, that's the reason why I never listen to this nonsense that you're too young to lead, that you're too young to participate. I never give time to that nonsense. Because if 20-year-olds fought for the liberation of this continent and sacrificed to liberate this continent and took responsibility for the birth of our nations, so what are you telling the youth of today? That suddenly youth has become a barrier to seek leadership, a barrier to participate? No, never listen to that nonsense. That either you're too young, you're too experienced. Who trained those fellows to become leaders? Who trained Tom Mboya to become a minister at the age of 28? Who trained him? Where did he gain experience? Oh, you have no experience. Please never listen to that crap. Sorry, I was about to. Don't listen to it. I'm a believer in the mantra that in any fight, what matters is never the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight of the dog in that fight. That is really what matters. That is where the rubber meets the road, the size of the fight in the dog in the fight. But reflect on that and really find an answer of what is missing in the latter day generations of our young people. Good people, I was elected to parliament as a youth. I was a youth by the constitutional UN definition of a youth. I was a youth when I was first elected to parliament. And what pulled me to seek to be elected to parliament was this idealist desire to be part of remaking Kenya's constitutional architecture. I had been an activist, and I met a friend who told me, your activism will only make meaning if you take it to the forum where it really matters, where decisions are made. You think you want to contribute to constitution making? Come to parliament. That is where the rubber meets the road. And so I made every effort and I got elected to parliament. And voila, as fate would have it, I get elected as a co-chair of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Constitution Making. Handed a responsibility to crack a never-ending challenge to give Kenya a new constitution. Kenya had been struggling with that challenge for donkey years. Now, 2 rookie members of parliament, myself and then member of parliament for Mandera Central, Abdulkadir Mohammed, I handed this responsibility to chair a committee which was basically a constellation of Kenya's best legislators of the day. That committee had people like Kiraitu Murungi, it had people like Martha Karua, it had people like James Orengo, it had people like the current president, William Ruto, Musalia Mudavadi. It was a constellation of who is who in the political jungle. We got the responsibility with my fellow youth on the public country to steer that process. Long story short, we did it. And on 25th day of August, we sat at Uhuru Park and watched President Mwai Kibaki hold aloft the new Constitution of the Republic of Kenya on August 25, 2010, and we failed. We did it. That same year, Kibaki called us to State House. And he told us, you know, you young people, do you know why you delivered this thing? Because you are young and you are not corrupted by all the divisions and all these things that somehow have a way of polluting you the longer you stay in the political space. What I'm telling you is that you don't know what you possess as youth. You don't know what you possess. You possess incredible passion, incredible ability, and you can refuse at your age to be polluted by the divisions that define this country, whether they're divisions of political party or divisions of tribe. What you love to define each other with, tribe, region, or whatever it is you define each other with. You can refuse to be corrupted by those things and just become a Kenyan young person that wants to live in a better country. So, Kibaki actually gave us that honor. I was made at that time. Kibaki told me, I'm going to make you elder of the Golden Heart. So when you see the title EGH at the end of my name, that's a title given to me by the President Mwai Kibaki in recognition of my contribution to constitution making. And soon thereafter, he actually appointed me Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports. Soon thereafter. Why am I sharing this with you is that we hold back so much and we tend to focus more on the challenge rather than the opportunities that are available to us. I want us to confront certain challenges that are real in our society, and we stop rehashing and regurgitating certain cliches that were rehashed, that we've been talking about for the last 20 years. Let me tell you that one of the challenges we have that are hindering effective participation of young people, especially in the democratic process and governance, is that we have become too transactional. We have become very transactional. Governance cannot be transactional. Democracy cannot be transactional. I had the privilege of going to school in the US for my postgraduate studies. And I studied the US polity very closely. I was in the US when Obama decided he wanted to be president of the US. And it was quite something, it was quite a star. You'd go to a restaurant and you'd laugh at how Obama would be described, okay? Obama's image would come to the TV screen and you'd hear comments in the room like, oh, it is that black fellow with a funny name. That black fellow with a funny name. You'd hear comments like that in a restaurant. Obama went on to become president. But the Obama revolution was almost 90% youth-driven. It was a revolution that rode on the passion and imagination and the ingenuity of American young people. And I got so interested in understanding the governance wiring of the average American youth. How are they wired? How do they view politics? How do they view governance? How do they view electoral participation? And I discovered two things. Number one, they suffer frustrations with the politicians like we all do. All politicians, all politicians don't listen. All politicians are selfish. They suffer those frustrations. Those frustrations are almost universal. But two, and more significant, they are very idealistic. Very idealistic. They hold themselves to a higher ideal. And one of those higher ideals is that they believe the United States of America has a DNA, has a character, has a soul. And that soul is freedom, is liberty, defined by the democratic ideal anchored on their constitution. And so participating in the electoral process is idealistic. It is about saying the founders of the United States of America sought the freedom to constitute their own government. Elect a government of your choice, by the people, for the people, of the people. That's the famous American mantra. And so for me to register and just go to vote, I have continued that proud tradition, that proud history that is in the DNA of the US of A. What that fellow I vote for becomes, whether he becomes a vagabond or he becomes a great leader, is secondary. Primary is that I must continue this proud heritage of a functioning democracy anchored on institutions. And when you have people who believe in their constitution, in their democracy, and in their institutions, you can survive a lot of things. You can even survive Trump. America survived Trump. Even when he did a raid after he loses the election, he attempted something never seen in that part of the world. You saw what he attempted? The country survived it. Because you have a population that is invested in the Constitution, is invested in the institutions of the country. Flip the coin, come to the Kenyan youth. Transactional. We have become so transactional. So you want me to register to vote? Tumalizane. Tukimalizane, maybe nitaregister. So you want me to vote for you? Tumalizane. So you elect leaders ambao strike a transaction. Sasa umemalizana na mtu on voting day, unataka nini tena baada ya kumalizana naye? You tell me, once you have turned your politics into a transaction, and let me tell you good people, if you're doing researches and surveys and analysis, and you're not confronting these realities, you're not going to get anywhere. I'm telling you this. I've been in that jungle of politics. I've sat in that parliament for 10 years, and I'm serving in government now. This is my third stint serving in government. I know that terrain perfectly. Don't rehash things of 20 years ago. Tell us reality that we need to confront. I want you people to be able to tell us, how do we deal with this transactional nature of our politics? How do we bring some higher ideal, some higher national good to define our politics? So that it doesn't matter whether the fellow has paid you or not, you're voting in a manner that has a higher goal, a higher good. It doesn't matter whether this fellow is Luo, Kikuyu, Luya, Ndorobo, or Njep. You're just voting for something bigger, something better. Black people alone could never have made Obama president. They're not enough. Even if you put blacks, Hispanics, and those migrants, they will not have elected Obama president. Obama was made president by white, young white people who looked at a greater God than Obama's skin color. Young people who felt challenged by the famous words of Martin Luther King in his famous I Have a Dream speech, where he dreamt of an America where he says, my little girls will be judged not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. Are you young people who judge people by the sound of their last name or by the content of their character? You who are seated in this room, you are more likely to judge a candidate in an electoral contest by their surname than by the content of their character. True or false? Then you complain, oh, this political system has problems. But it is you who have lowered the standards. So I challenge you today, raise the bar. Stop that transactional nature of our politics. Because mimi nikinunua kura yako, tumemalizania hapo. Sasa, ukiuzana na mtu kitu, mnamalizana hapo. Sasa tena tutakutana siku ile ambayo tena mimi niko na offer na wewe uko na kitu ya kununua. Hapo namna gani? As long as you keep it transactional, you're in trouble. Raise the ideal, raise the bar, hold your leaders to higher standards. So you end up voting for vagabonds and rascals and miscreants. And you complain for 5 years. You elect someone who will never take a moment to go through the finance bill. Lakini ukimsikia akisimama kwa political platform, hiyo finance bill tutaangusha. He doesn't even know one clause in that finance bill because he can't read. He can't read. Alinunua kura yako, ameenda bunge, hajui finance bill inasema nini. Nasema tu, amesikia mahali wa fulani wakisema tutaangusha. So yeye pia anajua hii ndio wimbo iko popular. The popular song right now ni kwamba finance bill itafanya nini. Feel sorry for you guys. On the issue of employability, my only point is that we have to expand the horizon of opportunities, as I have already indicated. We need to take full advantage of the digital space. We need to be more innovative. In the words of Waldo Emerson, Do not go where there is a path. Sometimes choose where there is no path and leave your own trail. Let the first trail in that bush be you. You don't need to follow always the well-trodden, the well-beaten path. Create your own path. And Talanta Hela is about that. Talanta Hela is about charting a new path. We want to monetize talents, we want to commercialize talents, we want people to live well from their talents, whether it is in sports, music, film, theater, fine art, that whole space of talents we want to turn it into revenue. At the end of the day, good people, whatever it is that you are doing, please remember these words of Martin Luther King. If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job so well. This must be quite some street sweeper. Martin Luther King is saying, whatever it is that is your commission in life, whether you are running Youth Alive Kenya, or you're a content creator on social media, or you're an athlete or some CEO, whatever organization, or you're doing business, do it so well that it will not miss the attention of anybody who chances upon your work. If every one of us does our best and we hold ourselves and others to higher standards, this country will be better. And this country has enough for everybody. What this country does not have is enough for the greed of all of us. But for the need of all of us, it does. It has enough for the needs of all of us. For our greed, it will never be enough. I assure you that the Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Arts and Sports is available to work with you on this journey, to work with you in this recalibrating our thinking, re-socializing our approach to issues. I assure you that we can work together to get the youth conversation in a better space. I have agreed to the request by our Secretary for Youth, Raymond, to hold a town hall on matters youth. And we can hold a town hall all day, and we will talk, we'll bounce ideas off each other, because I have this enduring, deep-seated faith in the youth of Kenya. I believe in the youth of Kenya. And I have no doubt that if we do not start harvesting the youth dividend now, we are actually setting up this country for implosion. So we have to start harvesting the youth dividend now, expanding opportunities for our young people, but also raising the bar in terms of our own ideals. Don't hold anybody to an ideal higher than you hold yourself to. Never. You are a fake. If you hold someone to an ideal by which you don't live, you are a fake. Actually, you are a fake. Where are the fakes are? Fake, kabisa. Before you hold anybody to an ideal, test yourself first. You want people to be more democratic, and you're a tyrant. You want people to be more inclusive, yet you're the most constricted person ever. If you want to hold others to higher ideals, start with yourself. Even Christ teaches in the Bible to only love others as I love. So the standard of loving others according to Christ is what? Self-love. Self-love. Alafu nadanganya mtu ya kwamba you will die for them. No, stop lying. You can't die for anybody, because for you to be there for them, you must remain alive. Love others as you love yourself. Hold others to the same ideals that you hold yourself to. Congratulations, Youth Kenya Live. If I have upset you, let me tell you, that is not the script that was written for me. So crucify me, but spare the fellows from my ministry. What they wrote for me is very different from what I have told you. Asante sana.
Thank you so much. Don't leave, don't leave. We will take a few photos, and all the keynote speakers to kindly just take photos over here on this side. And then soon after, we will come back on stage to officially hand over, do the launch, the official launch with all the pomp and color on stage. So all the keynote speakers kindly will take photos, and as they take the photos, I'd kindly like to ask Jackie Madenge, who's the Youth Alive Kenya board chairperson, to be on standby as she's going to give the vote of thanks, and then we're going to the pomp and color. Thank you. So that we continue with what we have to do, the official cutting and the official launch of the report. Hey, back a selfie. In Kenyans, we are now taking an advantage. Hey, hiyo ni close sana. Hiyo si ni passport photo. Jamani, hii si ni passport photo. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we will officially invite, so we would like to officially launch this, so there will be a lot of pomp and color. Without much ado, to help cut the ribbon, Dennis Mungo, Executive Director, Youth Alive Kenya, you will hold the ribbon together. Yani tutashikana hapo as we cut. So ladies and gentlemen, officially to launch the report, Youth Situational Analysis in Kenya. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen! Let's make it louder! Yeah! finally leave, I'd like us to do a vote of thanks, then continue with the photos. Kindly, let's have our seats for a bit. We do a vote of thanks, and then we can continue with the photos. Tafadhali, let's have our seats. Let's give her a moment.
It's still morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jackie Mathenge. I am the board chair of Youth Alive Kenya. I'm here for a very simple task, to give a vote of thanks. And so I will get right to it, because I know we are running short on time. So the CS, Ministry of Youth, Sports Affairs and the Arts, representatives from the Norwegian Embassy, and other representatives from the Diplomatic Corps, all protocols observed. Today, as we gather here and conclude this remarkable event, I stand with you with a heart full of gratitude and appreciation. On behalf of the entire Youth Alive Kenya team and the board, I would like to extend a vote of thanks to each and every one of you who have made it here today. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the CS, Honorable Ababu Namwamba, for taking time off your very busy schedule to join us as we launch this report. I think, as Raymond mentioned yesterday, you were with the President. When you live here, you get to meet CECs. So we really do appreciate the time that you made to join us today. We recognize that your presence today, as well as your keynote address to us, which I think has left all of us pondering on how we can do better as youth and how we can change our ideals and perhaps offer ourselves for positions as you did, has left us with no doubt that you are truly committed to the recommendations of this report. And we trust and believe that under other regimes where similar reports have been done, they will not gather dust. Yeah? We are excited and honored to be a small player in transforming the lives of young people as Youth Alive Kenya, and to supporting the ministry in its very ambitious mandate to not only create bigger spaces for us to hold the economic space, but also to be better citizens and have a greater civic responsibility. I would also like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Principal Secretary in absentia and all the others we had invited, though they have sent their representatives, the NYC team, for your unwavering commitment to ensure that youth inclusion and participation are prioritized within your respective dockets. It is through your offices that we are able to bridge the gap between policy and practical implementation. And that is something that we believe that this research is going to be able to feed into. It is through your offices, indeed, that this research is not going to gather dust. One of my favorite quotes actually is by Plato, which says that good decisions are not only based on numbers, but also knowledge. And I believe that the report by Youth Alive and Mbuki gives us both. So we have a very good place to start off from. To our long-standing development partner, NOREC, today who is represented here by Ellen from the Embassy, a big, big thank you. Thank you for believing in the mission and the vision of Youth Alive Kenya, and for supporting us over the years. This research is just but one of the tangible outputs of our cooperation. And on behalf of the board and the team, we really do look forward to changing the youth space in Kenya in a very small way, like Wangari Maathai's hummingbird. I think I need not explain about that part. To the civil society and the YSO team, thank you for an incredibly harmonious working relationship that has been characterized over the last few years by collaboration, coordination, a shared vision, and a shared purpose. Ours is indeed one that proves that the sum of the parts is always greater than the whole. Comrade Pam? Thank you, you're such sports. To our partners existing and those who we intend to make numerous follow-up calls and emails because you have joined us today. Asanteni sana for taking the time to join us on this very cold Monday morning. I believe your presence here is equally a testament to your shared vision to transforming the lives of young people in Kenya, and the recognition that we need to find sustainable and dignified ways to do this collectively and jointly. To the organizers of this event, all the service providers, the MC, for the pomp and flair, thank you very much. Mbarikiwe sana. To our researcher Mbuki, you have put in time, you have applied your mind to give us this wonderful document, and we are really, really grateful for the time you put in. Asante sana. Last but not least, to the Youth Alive Kenya team, and I dare ask you to please stand up. Those who are outside, if you know you get a payslip from Youth Alive Kenya, be on your feet. When I see us, I know you don't get a payslip, Freddie, but you're the VC, so please stand up. When I see us, if you look around, I can confirm without a doubt, everyone here is under the age of 35. The ideal of Youth Alive has always been youth-led, youth-serving. So we present those opportunities to young people. Even me, I'm under 35 for a few more months. But I'm still here, yeah? So to the Youth Alive Kenya team, thank you so much under the able leadership of Dennis. Kudos to all of you. I speak confidently on behalf of the board when I say you have done an incredible job in carrying the vision of the organization forward and making your impact on the lives of young people. Again, we do it in our own small way, like the hummingbird of Wangari Maathai. Thank you to all of you, and most of all, thanks to God for good health, for strength, and for purpose. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Okay, yes. So we'd like to finish, but as we finish, I'd like you to use the following hashtag to post a photo that you've taken or any other takeout from the report launch. Hashtag State of the Youth KE. Hashtag State of the Youth KE. We'd like you to post and share as much as you can because we would like this report to be popularized on social media. And also, youthalivekenya.org is where you can officially find the report launch that has been officially launched today. youthalivekenya.org, that's exactly what you need to use. I've been your host, Brian Aseli. I work for Standard Media. I have a radio and TV show. One of them is called Youth Cafe. So I'm in Deep State. For youth, and of course another youth show, breakfast show called Vibes Radio. I'm Vijana Ababu. So thank you so much for creating time to be here. When I see us, what Youth Alive Kenya, if you get a payslip or you don't get a payslip, but you work for Youth Alive Kenya, I'd like you to be on stage so that we can take a corporate photo. Then soon after, you may leave at your own pleasure. Have a good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
That's our convener.